Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Ever wondered why we say things like break the ice or kick the bucket? These phrases are everywhere, but their origins are wild. Today, we're diving into the bizarre and hilarious stories behind some of our most common sayings. Get ready for a linguistic adventure. By the end, you'll have enough fun facts to be the life of any party. We'll peel back the layers of history, explore some wild theories, and have a few laughs. Trust me, you'll never hear these phrases the same way again. Are you ready? Let's get into it. First up, break the ice. A phrase we've all heard and likely used, but have you ever stopped to consider its origins? It's one of those expressions that's so ingrained in our everyday language that we rarely question where it comes from. We all know it means starting a conversation in an awkward situation. That moment of initial hesitation, the feeling of uncertainty before the first words are exchanged. It's about easing tension and creating a more relaxed atmosphere. But why ice? What's the connection between frozen water and social interaction? Why this particular metaphor? Why not just start talking, or initiate a dialogue? Why involve the imagery of something cold and brittle? The answer lies in a fascinating journey through history. The answer is surprisingly literal and historical. It's a story that takes us back centuries, to a time when waterways were the lifeblood of society. Picture Europe centuries ago. Imagine a world vastly different from our own, where travel and trade relied heavily on the natural environment. Rivers and canals were the highways, the primary arteries of commerce and communication. They connected cities, facilitated trade, and allowed for the movement of people and goods, but in winter, they froze solid. These vital waterways became impassable, halting trade and isolating communities. The frozen rivers were a barrier, a physical obstacle to connection. If you were expecting guests, perhaps for a crucial business meeting or a celebratory feast, you'd send out small, tough ships, icebreakers, specially designed vessels built to withstand the harsh conditions, to smash through the frozen river and clear a path. These ships were a symbol of effort, of overcoming obstacles to ensure connection and communication. It was a grand gesture of hospitality, a demonstration of commitment to your guests and the importance of their arrival, literally making way for connection. Removing the barrier, opening the channels for interaction and exchange. Over time, the phrase jumped from rivers to social gatherings. The act of physically breaking ice to facilitate travel became a metaphor for overcoming social barriers. Instead of boats, the tools shifted. A well-timed joke or question became the tool to break through social stiffness. Laughter, shared interests, and genuine curiosity replaced the brute force of an icebreaker ship. Suddenly, breaking the ice meant clearing the way for conversation, creating a comfortable space for people to connect and engage. So next time you're at a party, remember, you're participating in a tradition that spans centuries. You're not just making small talk, you're not just filling the silence with mundane observations, you're carrying on a centuries-old tradition, a legacy of connection and hospitality. You're the icebreaker, the modern-day equivalent of those brave ships that forged paths through frozen rivers. Forging paths for new connections, creating opportunities for friendship, collaboration, and understanding. The original meaning, boats smashing ice, has faded, but the spirit remains. The underlying principle of removing barriers to facilitate connection endures. It's a powerful reframe, a shift in perspective that can transform your approach to social situations. Your awkward introduction is actually a noble mission, a continuation of a historical practice of fostering connection. The phrase's journey from frozen rivers to friendly banter shows how language evolves, adapting to changing social landscapes while retaining its core meaning. We turn practical acts into emotional metaphors, imbuing everyday language with layers of history and meaning. So, channel your inner shipping magnate, embrace the spirit of those intrepid icebreaker captains. Next time you're in a quiet room full of strangers, don't be intimidated by the silence or the perceived awkwardness. Take a deep breath, break the ice, and remember the historical weight of your actions. And make history, one conversation at a time. You never know what connections you might forge, what opportunities you might unlock, and if all else fails, just talk about the weather. It's a classic icebreaker for a reason. Isn't it cool how a phrase for awkward moments comes from such an epic origin? From frozen rivers to bustling social gatherings, the journey of breaking the ice is a testament to the power of language and the enduring human need for connection. You're not just Dave from accounting, you're not just another face in the crowd. You're Dave, breaker of ice, captain of conversation, a modern-day hero, forging connections and building bridges in the social landscape. Go get 'em! Embrace your inner icebreaker and make the world a little more connected, one conversation at a time. Alright, let's dive into another quirky idiom. Next up, it's raining cats and dogs. A phrase we've all heard, probably even used ourselves, but have you ever stopped to consider just how bizarre it is? We all say it, but why those animals? Why not frogs and lizards, or elephants and hamsters? What's so special about cats and dogs when it comes to describing a heavy downpour? The answer, as you might suspect, is a bit more complicated and a lot more interesting than you might think. The origins are murky, like the puddles left after a really good rain, but the theories are wild and a little gross. Prepare yourself because we're about to take a trip back in time to explore some rather unpleasant possibilities. One theory takes us to old European cities, specifically to a time long before modern plumbing and sanitation systems. Imagine crowded streets, buildings packed tightly together, and a general lack of hygiene that would make our modern sensibilities shudder. Where sanitation was non-existent and stray animals roamed everywhere. Cats, dogs, rats, you name it, they were all scavenging for food and generally making a mess of things. These animals were an integral if unwelcome part of the urban landscape. During heavy storms, cats and dogs would sometimes seek shelter on the only readily available high ground, slippery, thatched roofs. These roofs, often poorly maintained, became treacherous when wet, and inevitably some of them would lose their footing and be washed off into the streets below, joining the already overflowing muck and mire. To a passerby caught in the deluge, it might have looked like animals were literally falling from the sky, carried down by the sheer force of the rain. A rather grim image, isn't it? Another theory dives into mythology, a slightly less literal but equally fascinating explanation. Cats, throughout history, have often been linked to witches, the supernatural, and, yes, even storms. While dogs symbolized wind in Norse legends, think of the howling wind as the baying of a celestial pack of hounds, driving the storm clouds across the sky. So a wild storm could be imagined as a supernatural battle between cats, representing the torrential rain, and dogs, embodying the fierce wind. A clash of mythical forces playing out in the tempestuous skies. Regardless of its exact origin, the phrase first appeared in the early 1700s, popping up in the writings of various authors who were trying to capture the intensity of particularly severe weather events. With writers describing floods full of drowned animals, sadly painting a vivid picture of the devastation caused by these extreme weather conditions. It's a stark reminder of the power of nature and the vulnerability of both humans and animals in the face of it. Over time, thankfully, the dark reality faded and the phrase became a quirky, almost whimsical way to describe a downpour. The image of actual drowned animals became less prominent, replaced by a more abstract sense of overwhelming rain. Today, nobody really thinks of soggy strays or battling Norse gods when they say it. It's just a colorful expression, a way to emphasize the sheer volume of water falling from the sky. Language has polished away the grimness, leaving just the weirdness, the slightly absurd image of cats and dogs tumbling down from the heavens. It's a testament to how language can evolve, transforming dark and disturbing realities into lighthearted figures of speech. So next time you hear "it's raining cats and dogs," remember, it's a relic from a time when storms were a lot messier and a lot more dangerous. A time when the line between everyday life and outright disaster was often blurred. And be grateful that all you get from the sky now is water, maybe the occasional rogue umbrella, but definitely not a surprise poodle or a disgruntled feline. Thank goodness for progress. Progress in sanitation, in weather forecasting, and in our understanding of the world around us. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I hear a few cats and dogs outside. Just kidding. Now let's tackle the big one, a phrase that's both familiar and a little unsettling. Kick the bucket. It's a common euphemism for dying, a way to soften the blow of a difficult subject. We use it without thinking, often in casual conversation. But where does this strange expression actually come from? Well, its origins are surprisingly dark, steeped in the harsh realities of a bygone era. It's a phrase that carries a weight of history, a subtle reminder of the fragility of life. The leading theory takes us to old slaughterhouses, places where life and death were a daily occurrence. These were grim locations, far removed from our modern sensibilities about food production. Specifically, the theory points to animals being hung from a wooden beam called a bouquet. This beam was a crucial part of the slaughtering process, a point of no return for the animals. In their final moments, suspended and facing their demise, the animals would spasm, a natural reaction to the terror and pain they were experiencing. And in their struggle, they would literally kick the bouquet, a desperate, futile attempt to escape their fate. It was a visceral, unforgettable image. Over time, bouquet morphed into bucket, which became kick the bucket. A simple substitution, but one that softened the harshness of the original image. Another theory, equally morbid, involves suicide, a stark reminder of the desperation that some people face. The image is simple and tragic, standing on a bucket to reach a noose, and then kicking it away. A final act of despair. There's even a Catholic tradition, a more benign explanation but still connected to death and mortality. This tradition involves placing a bucket of holy water at the feet of the deceased, a symbol of purification and a blessing for their journey into the afterlife. In the throes of death, a final reflex could cause the bucket to be knocked over, spilling the holy water in a final, unintentional act. Whichever story you choose, and there are likely variations and combinations of these tales, the phrase undoubtedly started as a literal description of death, a stark and unflinching portrayal of mortality. Over time, as language evolved and societal sensitivities shifted, it became a casual, almost light-hearted way to talk about the end of life. A coping mechanism perhaps, a way to distance ourselves from the inevitable. We even turned it into bucket list, a complete reversal of the original meaning. Bucket list represents all the things you want to do before you kick the bucket, a celebration of life and experiences in the face of mortality. That's the magic of language, its ability to adapt, to transform, and to reflect our changing attitudes. It softens harsh realities, making them more palatable, more manageable, and transforms them into something we can laugh about, a shared understanding that helps us navigate difficult emotions. The phrase is now so far removed from its origin, so integrated into our everyday speech that most people never think of slaughterhouses, or the grim realities of animal processing, or grim rituals involving buckets and the deceased. The connection has been almost completely severed. It's a testament to how we use words, not just to communicate, but to shape our understanding of the world, to cope with life's toughest moments, to find humor in the face of adversity, and to connect with each other through shared experiences. And it makes you wonder, as language continues to evolve, what phrases will future generations find bizarre? What expressions that we use daily will seem strange and outdated to those who come after us? For now, just remember, the next time you use the phrase, kick the bucket, every time you talk about your bucket list and all the adventures you hope to have, you're echoing a much older, much stranger world, a world where the line between life and death was much more starkly defined. So there you have it. From breaking ice to dodging falling animals to the grim origins of a bucket, our language is full of hidden stories. Every time you use these phrases, you're referencing centuries of history, superstition, and some questionable old habits. Our daily conversations are like a museum of bizarre history. Language turns the strangest parts of our past into funny little sayings we use every day. Now it's your turn. What weird idioms do you love? Drop them in the comments. Thanks for hanging out and getting nerdy about words with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay curious.